What's up guys, my name is Vignesh and today we're going to see what a promise is in JavaScript. Well, a promise in JavaScript is same like any promise which we do in real life. Like suppose a person promises that he's going to complete task A today. So at the end of the day there are only two outcomes. Either he has completed the task or he has not completed. Things more or less work the same way in JavaScript. But instead of a person, just imagine a function and which has been assigned some task. So at the end there are only two outcomes. Either the function has completed a task or it does not. So let's just go ahead and create a promise so that we get a better understanding of how promises are. So I'll just go ahead and type let new promise. This is the name of my promise. You can give any name. New promise. Now this over here is a callback function and this function takes in two values, that is resolve and reject. So these basically mean that either a function has completed a task successfully or it has not. So if it has completed, it calls the resolve method over here, or if it has not completed, it passes the reject. So okay, I'll just go ahead and throw a task over here. So do some task. This is a task which the function has to complete. Like if this task has been completed, if task completed, we will resolve it, else we reject it. And that's it. That's how you create a promise. Now what is happening over here is that if this bracket over here is true, if condition is true, it's going to call the resolve function, else it's going to call the reject. So I just made a new variable over here called as task completed and set its value to true. Okay, so next thing which we are going to see over here is how to call a promise. So to call a promise, we need to first write the name of the promise and then we call the then function. Now the good thing about this then function is that it only gets called if the promise has been resolved. So if I get a true status from the resolve, only then the then function is called. So if I just go ahead and run this node, I can see that completed has been printed because of this statement over here. Now what if the promise was not resolved and instead we get a reject from the task? So to handle that, we use the catch. So again, we can write the catch and it again takes a callback function and we can write whatever we want to write over here. Like you can console.log saying that not completed. And if I just make this false and I save it, I get not completed. One good thing about promises is that we can use chaining in promises. That is, suppose we have three promises A, B, and C. So we can write our code in such a way that after completion of promise A, so that is after the promise A has been resolved, only after that promise B will be executed. Similarly, after promise B has been resolved, only after that promise C will start. So we can do something like that using promises. So over here I have created a promise and I have named it as first promise, and if it is resolved, it passes in a string called as first promise completed. Let me just go ahead and create two more promises like this. So this is the second promise and this is the third promise over here. So now I want my promises to be called in order, like the first promise should be executed first, the second should be done second, third should be done third. So before the first has not, so if the first has not been completed, the second should not start. So let's see how we can do that. So now the order in which I want my promises to be executed is first promise, then the second promise, and then the third promise. So to do this, I'll first write the first promise, that is the name of the promise, and I'll use the dot then function. What this will ensure is that until and unless this first promise is resolved, nothing after that would be executed. So I'll use a dot then function, and this is the callback function which I'm going to use, and I'm passing a parameter over here because when I'm resolving this function, I'm passing a string along with it. So that's why to catch the string over here, I'm using this parameter. And this will return the second promise, and I'm going to do the same thing for the second promise using the dot then function. Okay, so I just fast forward it, and this is how the function looks like. So the first promise, then the second promise, and then the third promise, and until and unless this promise has not been resolved, nothing would be executed over here. That is the second and the third promise. And similarly for the second promise, until and unless second is resolved, third won't start because of this then function. And after every every promise has been executed, then we call in the log and we log the results over here. So if I just go ahead and run this, you can see that the first promise completed. So that comes from here, from the first promise. Then we have the second promise completed, which comes from here. And then we have third promise completed, which comes from here. And ultimately it is displayed over here. Now what if instead of resolving, one promise rejected, just got rejected? So we can have the catch over here. And then again, we have a callback function. The promise has not been completed. So I'll just console.log over here, saying that first not completed. And instead of resolve over here, I'll just reject. So let's see what happens now. And if I go ahead and run this, I can see that first has not been completed. And the reason for this is that it got rejected from the first promise over here. And when we are seeing these functions over here, when we're seeing second and third promises, they won't get executed until and unless the first one is resolved. But the first one just got rejected. That's why second and third could not get executed. And yeah, that's all about promises. So if you have any questions regarding promises, feel free to ask your questions in the comment section below. Thank you for watching the video. See you next time.